Our 15th wedding anniversary wasn't supposed to feel like a stake through the chest. I'd left work early that afternoon. There hadn't been any big plan. No romantic getaway or extravagant dinner reservation. Maisie had insisted she'd be stuck at the hospital all evening, so I figured I'd do something small, thoughtful. Show up with her favorite lavender latte from the cafe down the street, maybe some lilies, her favorite, even if she claims they're too fragrant for a hospital setting. I parked across from the employee entrance of St. David's around 3:30. She wasn't due off until 6 o'clock, but I figured I'd catch her on a break or sneak inside if needed. I waited in my car with the engine idling, flipping through emails and glancing up every so often. The hospital staff filtered in and out, nurses, techs, paramedics, some looking like they were just barely holding it together. Then, around 4:10, I saw her. She stepped out of a sleek black Lexus that had pulled into the roundabout. At first, I was just relieved to see her. Something familiar in the chaos of my day. But then, my stomach twisted. The driver door opened and a man got out. He wore a gray wool coat over business casual slacks. Trim, confident posture. I didn't recognize him, but something about the way he moved next to her set me on edge. They didn't look like two professionals running into each other or discussing inventory orders. No, it was the ease between them, the lack of urgency. He handed her something small, maybe a wrapped sandwich or snack, and she laughed. She touched his arm. Then she hugged him. Not just a polite lean-in hug, either. It was close, comfortable, the kind of hug that says, "I trust you." And as they pulled apart, she leaned up and kissed him. Not on the cheek, on the temple. It was brief but int asterisk mate, the way you kiss someone you're fond of, protective of. The kind of gesture that's quiet and practiced. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, still holding the bouquet I'd picked up at that overpriced boutique florist on 5th. It felt like something inside me shifted, like a book snapping shut mid-sentence. They didn't go into the hospital. They walked down the block together and turned into a little cafe I knew well. A trendy, brick-walled place where you couldn't order without being asked if you wanted oat milk. I didn't follow them in. Instead, I waited, watched the cafe from half a block down with my hands on the steering wheel like they might keep me from falling apart. I told myself 1,000 stories in that hour. Maybe she was comforting a coworker. Maybe he was her boss and having a nervous breakdown. Maybe it wasn't a kiss, it was just awkward lighting and timing. But my gut knew better. When she finally emerged from the cafe an hour later, she wasn't with him anymore. She looked calm, unhurried. I ducked lower in the seat as she crossed the street toward the staff entrance, badge in hand. At home that evening, I didn't bring it up right away. She was all smiles when she walked through the door, tossed her bag on the counter, and kissed me on the cheek. "Happy anniversary," she said, holding up a bottle of sparkling wine. "Sorry I couldn't get off earlier. Brutal day." I said nothing for a moment, just watched her move around the kitchen, like a dance she knew by heart. "How was work?" I asked, feigning casual interest. She shrugged. "The usual. 3 code blues, a couple of walkouts, and someone threw up in the waiting room. You know, Tuesday things." I nodded, letting the silence linger for a beat longer than usual. "Did you get a break?" She hesitated, just a beat too long. "Not really. Maybe 10 minutes. Why?" "You weren't there around 4, I said evenly. "I stopped by. Figured I'd surprise you." Her face didn't fall. Not entirely. She's too composed for that. But I saw it, the flicker, a glitch in her expression. "You stopped by?" she repeated, tone lighter than it needed to be. "God, Roy, you should have texted first. I actually had to step out. One of our pharma guys, Wade, he was having a moment." "Wade," I echoed. "From?" She waved her hand. "He's with Gencor. You know, the clinical trial sponsor. Something about a shipment delay and possible lawsuits. He asked if I had time to grab coffee and talk." "You kissed him." Came out too quickly, like my mouth was tired of waiting for permission. Her body tensed, just for a second. Then she laughed, dry and dismissive. "Roy, it was a kiss on the head." He was shaking. He's going through a divorce, and he looked like he was about to cry. I didn't respond, just stared. "Jesus," she muttered. Are we really doing this? I stood my ground. It just didn't look professional. And you followed me? Sat outside watching like some jealous ex? What's going on with you lately? There it was. The pivot. Suddenly I was the problem. The paranoid husband. She walked past me and poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to me like a peace offering. I didn't take it. You're reading into things again, she said. I've told you 100 times, Roy, you overanalyze everything. You think because you used to work black ops or whatever, there's some conspiracy behind every shadow. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. She was good. Too good. Spinning it like I was the one being unreasonable. But I wasn't. Because something was wrong. I knew it in the way she'd been acting for months, small things that didn't add up, emotional shifts I couldn't pin down. And now this. Maisie disappeared into the bathroom to shower. I stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by silence and unopened wine. The lilies I'd bought sat limply on the counter, still wrapped in their plastic sleeve. 15 years. 15 years of partnership, sacrifice, secrets, and trust. All now weighed against a temple kiss and a name I didn't recognize until today. My chest felt hollow. Not broken, just empty. Like something important had quietly slipped away and I'd missed it until now. I cleaned up the counter, tossed the wine in the fridge, and left the bouquet on the dining table. I didn't sleep much that night. That night, I didn't go to bed. Not really. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling while Maisie breathed softly beside me. Every now and then she shifted under the covers, murmuring in her sleep, her hand brushing against mine like nothing was wrong. Like everything wasn't unraveling. At 3:27 a.m. I got up. Quietly. Years of field work trained me to move like a shadow, and that SK*LL had never felt more disorienting than it did now, creeping through my own house like a stranger. I made my way to the garage, to my workshop, the place that had always felt like mine. I turned on the small lamp above my workbench and sat on the stool, elbows on my knees, hands clasped like I was praying. But I wasn't praying. I was remembering. And once I started, I couldn't stop. It had been gradual, the change. The kind of thing that sneaks up on you like a slow fever. You tell yourself it's nothing, just stress, or a bad week, or the phase everyone warns you about when they say marriage is hard work. I thought back to last winter. Around February, Maisie started dressing different. Not drastic, not all at once. But there was a shift. More silk, more lace, more detail. She used to be a minimalist, sweaters, scrubs, simple jeans. But suddenly she was wearing heels to work again. Buying high-end perfume I didn't recognize. She started getting monthly lash extensions and facials. Not that there's anything wrong with self-care, but this was curated. And the lingerie. It showed up out of nowhere. Satin sets, delicate cuts, tags from brands I'd never heard of. Once I'd picked up laundry and noticed a bodysuit tucked into the bottom of the hamper. Black mesh. Tiny rose gold clips. Something she'd never worn for me. I asked about it once. She brushed it off, said she liked feeling S**XY for herself. I didn't push it. Then her schedule changed. She used to work mostly mornings. 10-hour shifts, sometimes 12. But suddenly she was working late. Picking up overnights. Filling in for someone. There were entire weekends where I barely saw her. When I asked, she'd sigh and say I didn't understand what the staffing crisis was like. That I didn't get how hard it was to say no to sick patients. I wanted to believe her. God, I tried to believe her. But then there were the dinners. Random charges to places we never went, upscale bistros, rooftops, steakhouses in SoCo. The first few I assumed were group outings with her coworkers. But one night I checked our bank account and saw a $212 bill from a jazz bar downtown. The receipt was itemized, 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, dessert for 2. I brought it up. She claimed it was a farewell dinner for a nurse who was transferring. Said they split the check. It didn't add up. And it wasn't just the spending. Her mood shifted. She became brittle. Irritable. Like my presence wore her down. If I asked a question, she snapped. If I suggested a date night, she told me she was tired. When I tried to kiss her hello, she turned her head. Our Maisie went from sparse to non-existent in a matter of months. She told me she needed space. That she felt overwhelmed. That I was hovering. Her phone never left her side. Used to be she'd leave it on the charger in the kitchen overnight. Now it was with her constantly on the nightstand, in her scrubs, clutched in her hand even during dinner. And she was always texting someone. Tapping quietly. Smiling at things I never saw. Once I caught a glimpse of a message as she turned the screen away. The name at the top was just W. No last name. No photo. When I asked who that was, she said it was Wendy, a travel nurse. She's going through a breakup, Maisie said. I'm helping her vent. She said it like I was paranoid for even asking. And maybe I would have kept brushing it all aside, chalking it up to stress or burnout if not for what the security guard told me. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was heading to the clinic to drop off her laptop charger. She'd forgotten it again. As I walked in through the employee's side entrance, the daytime security guy, Ruben, nodded to me. We'd chatted a few times before, usually about college football or weather. Hey, he said, squinting at me. Thought I saw Maisie at the mall the other day. Round Rock. She looked different, dressed up. Was that you with her? I frowned. No, I haven't been out there in weeks. He looked confused. Huh. Could have sworn it was her. She was with some guy. Tall, glasses, nice car. Maybe I'm wrong. I smiled politely and walked past him, but inside, my blood went cold. Maisie had said she was attending a compliance training that day, off-site, out near San Marcos. It didn't make sense. None of it did. And I hadn't realized how much I'd been ignoring. I started keeping a log. I told myself it was to organize my thoughts, but it was more than that. I needed something to hold onto, something tangible when the gaslighting started. I wrote down dates, places, her excuses. Cross-referenced her schedule with our joint calendar. I checked our financial statements line by line. Airline ticket receipts. A hotel charge from Chicago 4 weeks ago, supposedly a medical conference. There had been no conference. I checked. Around 5 a.m. I went back inside. She was still asleep, curled on her side, her back to me. I stood there for a while, watching her breathe, wondering how we got here. How a woman who used to rest her head on my chest each night could lie so easily now. My chest ached. I felt like a man living with a ghost. I walked downstairs and opened the drawer where we kept spare electronics, chargers, remotes, and old phone we'd used on trips. Her work laptop was in there, still plugged in from the last time she'd worked remotely. I knew the password, Maisie never changed it. I opened it, hesitated, then logged in. Maybe I shouldn't have. But I did. And that's when everything started to come undone. The laptop booted up without resistance. Maisie's login still worked, same password she used for everything, a holdover from our early years. I used to tease her about it, said she should change it up more often. She used to laugh and say no one would ever guess it. At the time, I believed her. Trusted her. I opened the browser. Her work email was already signed in. I scrolled past appointment reminders and interdepartmental chatter, feeling a twisted guilt coil in my gut. But the guilt was drowned out by instinct. I'd learned in the field that when your stomach clenches and the hairs rise on your neck, you don't ignore it. You listen. Halfway down the inbox, one email caught my eye. Subject, confirming Chicago and The Wire. It was from someone named Wade Felton. The name hit like a slap. I didn't remember it from the hospital directory, but I remembered the man. Tall, clean cut. The one from the car. I clicked it open. Maisie, the message began, confirmed The Wire. Same offshore route as usual. You were amazing last week. I still can't get over Chicago. You in those sheets? Dangerous. Winking face. I froze. He had attached a photo. I clicked and it loaded slowly, our internet suddenly crawling at the worst moment. The image was of her. In bed. Sheets wrapped around her waist. Bare shoulders. Hair tousled. Smiling. Relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not since before the miscarriages. Not since we still touched each other with intention instead of obligation. I backed out of the photo. The rest of the email continued like it was written in a different universe. She told him me still didn't suspect anything. That she'd handled the questions about her schedule. That he didn't need to worry about the Wyoming land because we'll finalize the sale by next quarter. The Wyoming land. My father's land. The cabin we'd inherited after Dad passed, still filled with boxes of old records and tools I hadn't sorted since the funeral. Maisie wrote that once it was sold, he'll have no real ties left. No real ties. That phrase did something to me. Split me. She wasn't just betraying me emotionally. This was calculated. Financial. Strategic. The kind of language people used when they were planning to disappear, to erase someone. I clicked through her email history. There were dozens of messages like it. Some more coded, some flirty, some clinical. Mentions of the data, the handoff, and references to clinics in New Mexico and Utah. A medical project. She had access to research files from a trial, something experimental. I didn't understand the details, but the language was careful. Controlled. She knew what she was doing. Wade was not some distressed coworker. He was a partner. A co-conspirator. I felt like I was drowning in paper cuts. Each message a slice, another little betrayal until the blood didn't matter anymore. I sat back, heart hammering in my chest. I stared at the screen and the cursor blinking at the bottom of the thread. I felt like the floor had dropped out beneath me. I thought of how she'd kissed me that morning, of the way she still said love you before leaving the house. Like it was muscle memory. Like I was a pet she was too cowardly to put down. And still, some part of me needed to be sure. I went to the downloads folder. A PDF had autosaved. It was a scanned contract. The title, Wyoming Parcel Sale Conditional Transfer Agreement. Buyer listed, WF Holdings. Seller, Roy and Maisie Miller. My name. My signature. Forged. There was a digital scan of my signature. It wasn't even a good one. Slightly tilted. Crooked. The notary stamp looked generic, maybe falsified. She hadn't just lied. She'd taken my name, my legacy, and turned it into a transaction. I closed the laptop, hands shaking. This wasn't just an affair. This was sabotage. An operation. I'd worked long enough in covert sectors to recognize the markers: layered accounts, emotional misdirection, delayed communications, staged alibis. This wasn't her first lie, and it wouldn't be her last. The world narrowed. My breath felt heavy. I left the workshop and sat on the edge of the stairs, laptop still in my hands. From the hallway above, I could hear her moving around. Brushing her teeth. Opening drawers. Moving like she hadn't detonated the center of my life. A rage swelled inside me. Quiet. Cold. The kind that doesn't scream but calculates. I didn't shout. Didn't throw anything. I sat there and realized what needed to happen next. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. I needed a plan. I needed to be smarter than her. And I needed allies. 2 days passed. I didn't confront her. Didn't ask about Chicago or the photo or the forged land contract. I played my part: husband, mildly distant, working late. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. That's when the police showed up. I was in my home office finishing up a quarterly report when I heard the knock. 3 slow pounds. Not friendly. Not casual. I opened the front door and was met by 2 uniformed officers and a detective in plain clothes. Behind them, 2 marked cruisers idled at the curb. My stomach dropped. "Mr. Miller?" the detective asked. "Yes. I'm Detective Salinas with the Travis County Sheriff's Department. Do you own a dark blue Chevy Suburban? License plate ending in 287? "Yeah, it's parked," my voice caught. I glanced at the driveway. The Suburban was gone. The detective stepped forward. "It was found early this morning in a public parking structure near Shoal Creek. Security footage shows it being dropped off around 2 a.m. He paused. There was a body in the trunk. I stared at him, unable to speak. My mouth opened but nothing came out. "A white male," he continued. "Mid-30s. No ID, but we ran prints. Jacob Callahan. Jake. My cousin. My only blood relative left. We hadn't talked much lately, but still Jake. My father's sister's son. Grew up together. Camped in the same forest he helped me clear as kids." I haven't seen Jake in weeks," I said, barely hearing my own voice. "Do you know why your vehicle would be at the scene?" the detective asked. "No," I said. "It was parked here last night. Right here. We have a neighbor's ring cam showing it pulling out of your garage around 12:47 a.m. No driver visible from that angle. We're collecting more footage." They asked to search the house. I had nothing to hide, or so I thought. In the garage, they found a crowbar, wrapped in a trash bag behind a box of Christmas decorations. It was bloodied. It had my fingerprints on it. I felt the walls closing in. "This is just a preliminary conversation," Salinas said. "You're not under arrest, but we will be conducting a full forensic review of your vehicle and home." I nodded, numb. My voice felt buried in cotton. "Was anyone else home?" he asked. "My wife. Maisie. Would she have had access to the garage?" "Of course. It's her house too." They left with the crowbar and a digital copy of the security footage. I stood on the porch after they drove off, watching their taillights disappear like they were taking my sanity with them. When I walked back inside, Maisie was already sitting on the couch. She looked calm. Too calm. "Did they say what it was about?" she asked. "Jake's dead," I said. She blinked. "What?" "They found his body in my car." Her mouth fell open, a perfect picture of confusion. "Your car? What, how?" I watched her carefully. Her eyes were wide, but her voice was measured. Not trembling. Not devastated. "Are you saying you think she asked. "No," I said. But I didn't believe it. That evening, my mother showed up unannounced. Maisie let her in, and they spoke in hushed tones. I came out of my office to find them sitting at the kitchen table, tea steaming between them like it was some kind of normal evening. My mother stood up and looked at me the way she used to when I forgot to take the trash out. Roy, I didn't want to bring this up, but I saw you, she said. Saw me what? Wednesday night. I was on the phone with Aunt Cora when I drove by around 1 a.m. I saw your garage light on. You were carrying something. A bag. You looked out of it. I stared at her. I wasn't here Wednesday night, I said. I was at a conference dinner. I have receipts. Pictures. I shook the damn mayor's hand. She looked confused. No, it was you. I know what I saw. Maisie stepped in then. Maybe you left after he got home. You're not sure what time it was. My mother shook her head. It was him. A pit opened in my gut. I knew exactly what this was. Framing. This wasn't about jealousy anymore. This was a setup. And it had started long before the crowbar. I pulled out my phone and called Eric, my old teammate from Fort Bragg. He picked up on the first ring. What's wrong, he said. I'm being framed, I said. Jake's dead. Silence. Then send me everything. By midnight, 3 more of the old team were looped in. One ran cyber intel out of Denver. One was stationed in D.C., contracted with the Justice Department. The last one owed me a favor from a job in Tunisia. We started building a case, piecing together accounts, tracing threads. The financial accounts were the first crack. Wade Felton wasn't just a pharma rep, he had shell corporations. Ties to off-book research labs in Canada and Cyprus. Payments to consultants, fake charities, even a medical courier company in Oregon with a revoked license. Maisie's email showed she was funneling data, confidential patient records, and research summaries from a classified trial. Some of the patients were veterans. Some had psychological conditions that required waivers to even participate. The data was tied to military grants. Stolen data. Federal violations. And then there were the transfers. Her mother had received $92,000 into an account in West Virginia. Her stepfather got $34,000 6 weeks ago. His name was attached to a logistics firm that didn't exist. We dug deeper. Maisie's late shifts? Half of them were no-shows. Her hospital badge never scanned in. She'd been logging false time reports, claiming overtime, but disappearing into blind Uber rides or private rentals. My teammates tracked the payments. They followed the digital breadcrumbs to encrypted servers and foreign IP addresses. This wasn't just an affair. This was treason. So we hit back. We packaged the evidence into dossiers, hard proof, *TS, banking trails, voice logs, location pings. We sent them to the IRS, the SEC, and a half-dozen investigative reporters. A contact in the DoD quietly opened a file. And we waited. The storm was building. But I wasn't done yet. No. I wanted them to know I was coming. Once the dossiers were in play, it became a waiting game. I hated waiting. Always had. But timing was everything in operations like this. If we moved too fast, they'd catch wind and scatter. If we moved too slow, they'd finish what they'd started, and I wasn't about to lose the last pieces of my life while they counted their profits. The first hit came quietly. Wade's company Theranext Solutions was trading publicly. My friend Neil in D.C. sent the data dump to a financial analyst he knew at the Wall Street Post. 3 days later, an expose went live. The headline read, Federal Grants, Foreign Labs, and Fraud Inside the Secret Deals of Theranext. Within hours, the article went viral. Stockholders panicked. By mid-afternoon, Theranext's stock dropped 17%. The board called an emergency meeting. Wade had to cancel 2 speaking engagements and flew back from a conference in Atlanta looking like a man who'd swallowed a grenade. I watched the coverage with cold satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. Next, I targeted the clinic. Maisie's workplace wasn't complicit, but they were sloppy. Lax oversight. Multiple employees using outdated software, leaving doors open for data leaks. I sent them an anonymous tip packaged neatly with fake credentials and links to her download logs. I knew their compliance officer had shared a drink with him years ago at a medical tech conference. Within a day, Maisie was suspended pending investigation. She came home furious. Someone's trying to ruin me, she said, slamming her bag on the counter. They think I leaked research files. I didn't even touch the data logs. I almost laughed. Instead, I just tilted my head. Are you sure? I asked. Because if they're accusing you, there's probably something there, right? She stared at me, eyes narrowed, lips pressed tight. You think I'm guilty? She asked. You really think I'd do that? I gave a slow shrug. I don't know what to think anymore. She looked like she wanted to hit me. But she didn't. Instead, she stormed upstairs and locked the bedroom door. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Because the real damage hadn't even landed yet. The next target was her family. Maisie's mother and stepfather, Elaine and Gary, had received funds through shell accounts linked to Wade's logistics arm. Elaine used hers to pay off a mortgage early. Gary had transferred his to a cousin in Georgia who operated AG*N store with known militia ties. We packaged the intel and sent it straight to the IRS. Within a week, both were flagged for audit. Elaine's bank accounts were frozen temporarily due to suspicious activity. Gary's cousin was arrested on unrelated *P*NS charges after an anonymous tip led to a surprise inspection. Maisie was losing her allies. Her stepfather called her in a panic one night. I overheard it from the hallway. "What the hell did you drag us into?" he shouted over speakerphone. "They're asking about wire transfers, consulting fees, dates I don't even remember. This isn't some tax mix-up, Maisie, this is federal." Maisie tried to calm him down, but her voice cracked. I could hear the unraveling start. She stayed up all night that night, pacing the kitchen in silence, rereading something on her phone. Probably bank statements. Probably the email Wade never responded to. Good. Let her panic. I was just getting started. Next, we went after the offshore accounts. Neil and Leah, my old team's cybersecurity experts, tracked the paths of the wire transfers Maisie had mentioned in her emails. Most were routed through Belize and Switzerland. A few slipped through crypto exchanges registered under shell names. But 2 accounts were still active, one under J. Ellison and another under a dead LLC based out of Denver. We flagged both accounts for financial watchdogs. Within 72 hours, regulatory scrutiny shut them down. Money frozen. Logs subpoenaed. Wade's money pipeline? Cut. Maisie's escape funds? Gone. The pressure closed in like a vice. News coverage escalated. Anonymous sources leaked documents to local outlets. State legislators started making noise. The VA pulled their contracts with Theranex pending review. Military research programs suspended collaboration. Public outcry began. And yet, through it all, Maisie kept pretending she had control. She started acting sweet again. Making coffee for me in the mornings. Smiling more. Asking about my work. Like it was all just a phase we'd gone through. But her eyes gave her away, darting, uncertain. She was stalling. Waiting for something. I wasn't sure what yet, but I knew better than to drop my guard. That's when I saw the file. It was a manila envelope tucked under the front seat of her car. She never locked it. Old habit. One night while she was in the shower, I slipped out, popped the door open, and pulled it out. Inside, printed emails. Signed affidavits. Photocopies of evidence, some of it doctored. It was a case file. A contingency. The top page read, "Statement of concern, Roy Miller." She had been preparing to hand me over. If everything went south, I was the fall guy. She wrote about erratic behavior, obsessive tendencies, disturbing past experiences from his military intelligence years. There was even a signed letter from her mother claiming I had paranoid delusions and had threatened to K*LL myself after my father died. All lies. That night, I sat on the back patio with a glass of bourbon, staring into the dark yard, wondering how someone could become so alien to you. I remembered the woman I married, kind, sharp, relentless in her ethics. Or so I thought. The woman inside that house now? She was a stranger. But even strangers can be predictable. I knew she'd run soon. Try to disappear. Maybe go with Wade. Maybe try to salvage the scraps of their plan. So I planned the final act. I reached out to my uncle, the one who still managed the Wyoming property. Told him to arrange a meeting. Invite everyone involved. Tell them Roy was ready to sell. The Wyoming property was the last piece. A place they thought they'd already stolen from me on paper, maybe. But I still had the keys. Still had the land deed locked in a safe under a name they didn't know existed. A name I'd used once, long ago, in a place the government doesn't acknowledge. I set the stage like any final mission, controlled, layered, and wired with fail-safes. I told my uncle to arrange a meeting. Make it sound low pressure. Just a final gathering to close out the sale. Maisie wouldn't resist. She'd want to secure the land, sign the transfer, and move on. They all came. Maisie arrived with Wade, her mother, and one of Wade's consultants. A man I recognized from a surveillance photo, ex-merc, now hired muscle. They walked into the cabin laughing like this was just another win. I greeted them like nothing had happened. Shook hands. Smiled. Inside, I'd staged everything, projector screens set up, folders neatly stacked, hot coffee on the counter like this was some kind of business brunch. They didn't see the motion sensors at the door, the cell jammers installed in the window frames, or the 3 drones circling from a ridge above capturing everything. Maisie looked around. "Where's the notary?" "Running late," I said. Thought we'd go over a few things first. I pulled up a video on the projector. Footage from Chicago. Maisie walking into a hotel room. Wade already in bed. Then a digital paper trail, offshore accounts. Transfers from research trial budgets. Cross-reference patient logs. Timed screensh * TS showing when the files were accessed from her hospital login. Maisie's mother gasped. Wade's face lost all color. And then the final piece, a manipulated but highly convincing video of Wade in the cabin garage attacking Jake with the crowbar. It was a composite stitched together from Wade's body cam footage and old garage security angles. Not admissible in court, but good enough to shake someone's confidence. Wade snapped. "This is entrapment," he shouted. "You don't have squat." But Maisie looked at me, pale and trembling. "You knew all along." "I did," I said. "And I let you build the whole thing. Gave you enough rope to hang yourself." She looked at her mother, who was already backing toward the door. That's when the federal agents stormed in. FBI, DOJ, and a few local officers who'd been briefed an hour earlier. Hands went up. Wade's guy reached for something in his coat. He got tackled hard. Maisie tried to speak. "Roy, please." I turned my back. The fallout was fast and brutal. Wade was convicted of corporate espionage, conspiracy to defraud the government, and accessory to murder. Life without parole. Maisie was sentenced to 18 years for wire fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Her mother got 12 for aiding and falsifying testimony. The media called it the Theranext scandal. Every news cycle loved the ex-intelligence officer turned whistleblower narrative. I didn't give interviews. I wasn't in it for the glory. Jake's death haunted me. I kept hearing his voice on our last call. He'd been working on a PTSD treatment protocol, one that used the same tech Maisie had helped smuggle. He wanted to help people. He died trying to protect something pure. So I did the only thing that made sense. I used the money I had left, what Maisie hadn't touched, to fund Jake's project. Formed a foundation in his name. Partnered with veteran clinics across the Southwest. Hired the same techs he worked with. They told me he left behind blueprints and notes. That's what I do now. I help fund the research. I visit patients. I share my story sometimes. Not all of it. Just enough to let them know pain can be redirected. People ask if I forgave her. I didn't. I never will. But I survived her. And that's more than enough.